Hey everybody, I want to make a video ranking the Beatles solo albums. So I'm going to give you my top 10 solo Beatle albums. And this is just my opinion, so I know you're going to disagree. Maybe you will agree as well, but there's a chance you're going to disagree. And I really took some time to think about this, and you might be kind of surprised what's in my top 10, and especially maybe like my ranking of my top 10. So anyway, here we go. Number 10, Brainwashed by George Harrison. Now, this is kind of an odd choice, I'm sure some of you are thinking, because this is George's last album. But I really, really, really like this album a whole lot. I like every single song on this record. In fact, in this top 10 list, I like every song on these albums. There isn't a song I do not like. So this album was recorded by George before he passed away, but it wasn't totally complete. So his son Donnie and his friend Jeff Lynne finished it up for him, along with Jim Keltner on drums. And they added some drums, extra guitars, some orchestration. And this album just really, really, it's because it's his last album, it's really emotional. But it's also emotional for the fans, I should say. It's not really an emotional album, but to me, this is some of George's best work. It's really, really deep stuff, and as far as an album goes, it just really, really works, and I really like it a whole lot. So, Brainwashed is a number 10 for me, and I will say a standout track for me on this album is "Looking for My Life" is just fantastic. So. It's George Harrison. Number 10 with Brainwashed. Number 9, appropriately, number 9, which is this person's favorite number, or was, we have John Lennon's Mind Games. This is an album that, in my opinion, gets overlooked way too much. It was released during kind of a low point in John Lennon's life, even he would say so. So he didn't really rank it that highly as either in some of his interviews. This is released right around the time him and Yoko were having problems, and right after this he would separate from Yoko and have his Lost Weekend. But this album is so great. To me, this is like John stopped doing the political songs for a little bit and just went back to just straight songwriting. So, and not that I like and appreciate John Lennon's political songs as well, but to me, he was really back in that special Lennon form. And some of the songs on here that I think are fantastic are like Mind Games. Tied As is a really cool like blues rock song. Ossie Musen is fantastic. My favorite song on here is I Know, which some people think might be John talking to Paul via song. But Mind Games is just such a great record, and it really works as an album, which is why it's number 9 on my list of top 10 solo Beatle albums. So that's John Lennon's Mind Games. And number 8, an appearance by George Harrison. Well, another appearance by George Harrison, of course, because we just had Brainwashed. This is number 8, and this is 33 1/3. This is George's album that was released, I believe, in 1976. And to me, this is, again, kind of like Mind Games. For me, this is George coming back into his own as a songwriter. He did a lot of spiritual songs on Living in the Material World and Dark Horse and Extra Texture. There's a lot of, like, some would call it preachy songs. This album has a few of those as well. But he's kind of back to just writing straight rock songs. There's a lot of guitar on here. This was after he lost the court case for My Sweet Lord, where they accused him of plagiarizing He's So Fine, the song by the Chiffons. And he has his song on here, which is his rebuttal to that, is this song, which is a great song on here. I just love this record. It's really soulful. It's got a lot of great slide guitar work, which George was, of course, known for. And I love his band on here. He's got Billy Preston, Willie Weeks on bass, who's fantastic. I think Jim Keltner's on here on drums. It's a really fantastic record. And my favorite song on this album is Beautiful Girl, which is so good. So number 8 is George Harrison's 33 and a Third. Number 7, Back to John. This might be kind of low on the list for some of you, but for me, it's right where it belongs. This is John Lennon's Imagine album, which I love, and it's a total masterpiece. And I think for me, this album is a little tricky, just because the song Imagine gets played so much. I definitely can see that it's a fantastic song, and I even like the song. Had it playing in my jukebox for the last couple of months. But it does get played over and over and over and over again, so it's hard to kind of step back and look at it as the great song that it is. That song aside, this is a fantastic record. It's so John Lennon. To me, this kind of sums up John Lennon's solo work. If anyone was going to ask me, I've never heard John Lennon, but what are the chances of that? But if someone said, I've never heard John Lennon's solo work, what album should I start with? I would definitely say start with Imagine. I would say Mind Games is maybe a little bit too airy, and I would say that Plastic Ono Band is a little too harsh. Imagine is just right in the middle there. It has a little bit for everyone. So I love Jealous Guy. I love How Do You Sleep, even though it's about Paul and it's kind of a nasty song. It's just a great sounding track. I also love George Harrison plays on this on some of the songs. His slide work is so great, like on Give Me Some Truth and I Don't Want to Be a Soldier. Fantastic stuff. Oh, Yoko's on here as well, which is a really, really great track. It's a great album, up and down. So John Lennon's Imagine is, let's see, we got 10, 9, 8. So this is number 7. So number 6, speaking of John Lennon and Plastic Ono Band, here it is, number 6. This record, for me, was a huge, huge record when I discovered it. I was about maybe like 13, 14 when I think I rented it from the library. At our library, you could rent CDs, and this is one of the albums that I picked up. And it's just such a statement. This album is the ultimate statement for me. It's John at his just absolute most... he's just putting himself completely out there. There's no wall between him and his emotions, so you can look right inside of him and see what's going on. It's got so many fantastic songs. Mother is great. Hold On, John is probably my favorite song on the album. I also love the song God. All really, really great stuff. And Ringo's drumming on this. Again, Ringo. Ringo gets kind of overlooked for his drumming, which is hard to believe, but it's true. His drumming on here is so great. It makes the album for me. Fantastic stuff. So that's John Lennon and Plastic Ono Band. All right, so we had 10, 9, 8, 7, 6. Okay, so we're halfway there. Number 5. You can kind of see it over here on my bed. McCartney. This is Paul McCartney's debut solo album, and this is recorded by himself at home. Well, a lot of it was recorded at home. Some of it was recorded at Abbey Road and another studio called Morgan Studios. But it's all Paul, with a little bit of Linda. Linda sings some backing vocals. This album is just such a... I can put this on at any time, and I enjoy it. It puts me in a really, really nice place. I also love all the photos that come with it. And there, of course, has the famous photo there that Linda took of Paul and his daughter Mary. But to me, this is just such a cool album. This is like, really, to me, this is an extension of like Paul's work on the Let It Be album or the Get Back sessions. Not necessarily Abbey Road, more of that Get Back, Let It Be stuff. In fact, you get a Get Back outtake, Teddy Boy, which was worked with the Beatles during the Get Back sessions, is on here, Paul's version. And of course, you get Made by Amazed, which is perhaps Paul's best-known solo song. And it's also a very weird album. It's got a bunch of instrumentals. It's got a song called Glasses, which is just Paul playing with glasses filled with water and making that real high-pitched ringing sound. It's just such a piece of art, and I love this album so much. So number 5 for me is Paul McCartney's McCartney album. Number 4, George Harrison's self-titled album called George Harrison. And this was released in 1979, so it says on the back here. And to me, this is another time period or another album that's just so overlooked. This is George to me at his melodies on here are his best on this album. Every song has a great melody. Everything is really, really well played. Eric Clapton plays the opening guitar on the opening song, "The Love Comes to Everyone," which is my favorite song on this album. And there's just so many great songs on here. "Faster," "Dark Sweet Lady," "Your Love Is Forever." "Here Comes the Moon" is excellent. And then you have a song on here called "Not Guilty," which was originally recorded during the Beatles' White Album that they decided not to put on the album, so George re-recorded it for this album, which is about, well, I'd make it like 10 years later when he actually re-recorded that song. So this album is, like I said, overlooked, and I think it's so fantastic. This is another one, like McCartney, where I can put it on and it just puts me in that certain mood. It takes me back right to when I remember discovering this. In fact, I got this on CD when they re-released the Dark Horse albums, probably like, at this point, like maybe like 15 years ago. And I just really fell in love with it. So George Harrison's George Harrison album is number 4 for me. Number 3, and my highest ranking John Lennon album on this list, "Walls and Bridges." Now this might be a surprise to some of you, but for me, this album is John Lennon at his best. It's during his Lost Weekend that he made this, and I just really love the production on here, first of all, and he produced it himself. The songwriting on here is excellent, top-notch, and he has a lot of really fantastic guest appearances. Number 1, by Harry Nilsson, who he co-wrote Old Dirt Road with, and Old Dirt Road is my favorite song on this album. You also get a song he does with Elton John called "Whatever Gets You Through the Night." And the session musicians on this album are also fantastic. A lot of the guys from the LA scene at that time and the New York scene. You get Jim Keltner, you get Jesse A. Davis, just really, really, really good players. And this is, to me, it's such a John Lennon album. I mean, it is a John Lennon album, but it's such a John Lennon statement of his at that time. So when he's going through all this misery, he's missing Yoko, but he's actually writing some pretty upbeat songs, but also some depressing songs at the same time. You get "Nobody Loves You When You're Down and Out," which is great. "Stealing Glass," which is another great song, which is his put down of Alan Klein, who was the Beatles at one point manager. And you get "Number 9 Dream," which is just probably my favorite John Lennon single ever released. So catchy, so great. I just love "Walls and Bridges." So that's number 3 for me. Number 2, "All Things Must Pass." It's a masterpiece, 100% a masterpiece. I even love the fact that it's 3 records and that one of the records is just a jam. I think that's so cool that he threw that in there. And it's a jam with some of the greatest musicians on earth. It's Eric Clapton, George Harrison, Colorado. Basically, it's like Derek and the Dominoes, which Eric Clapton went on to form after this, jamming with George. So that's really cool. And then just the actual songs themselves are George's best songs for me. The title song, "All Things Must Pass," is a song that was worked on with the Beatles, but he eventually used it on this album. "Isn't It a Pity" is a fantastic tune. "What Is Life" is one of my favorite George Harrison songs. And then my all-time favorite George Harrison song is on this record, and it's "Awaiting on You All." So I had to rank this one high. So number 2, "All Things Must Pass." Number 1, you probably knew this already, "Ram." Ram is, to me, one of the most misunderstood albums of all time. Paul, when he released this in 1971, wasn't looked upon too favorably by the public because I think a lot of people accused him of breaking up the Beatles, or at least helping to break up the Beatles. And they thought, a lot of people thought his music was just kind of silly and had no texture to it, no meaning. I disagree with all of that. I think this album is packed full of meaning, and yeah, it's silly and quirky and weird, but that's why it's so great. It's so different. Nothing, in fact, nothing since this came out has even come close to this. Besides it being a Beatle-related album, this is also just one of my favorite albums of all time by anyone. To me, this is Paul taking what he did on Abbey Road and continuing it with his solo work. It's heavily orchestrated on some stuff, and it's the best of Paul McCartney for me. It's got some of my favorite Paul McCartney songs. It's got Dear Boy, which is one of my favorite songs. Too Many People is fantastic. Ram On, the title song, is really great. Uncle Albert, Admiral Halsey, probably my favorite Paul McCartney single. It's just, every single song on this is absolutely perfect, and I love it so much. And if you haven't heard it, now's the time. This is, by far, for me, the #1 solo Beatle record. In fact, I put this along with the Beatles catalog as it stacks up against all the Beatles work, in my opinion. I just think it's so great. So that's my list. You may be saying to yourself, hold on a second, where's Band on the Run? Where's Venus and Mars? Where's anything by Ringo? You know, this is just my top 10 list, and I'm sure a lot of you are probably scratching your heads like, how could you not have Band on the Run in here? I love the album Band on the Run, but for me, I just didn't think that it was. I liked it more than any of my top 10 here. It is a great album. Also, Venus and Mars is a fantastic album. I love Tug of War. I love McCartney 2. I love Back to the Egg. I love all the Beatles solo material. Let me just get that straight. I really do. I actually had a hard time. I was going to put John Lennon's Milk and Honey album on here because I love Milk and Honey. I think it's a really underrated album. And in fact, some more George Harrison albums. Cloud 9. I love Cloud 9. I really like the Dark Horse album by George. But I just didn't think that those were the top 10 for me. And let me just say about Ringo. I do like some of Ringo's solo albums. But for me, I like Ringo more as a singles artist. Ringo had some great singles, and in fact, if I was going to include like compilations in this set, I would have chosen Ringo's compilation Blast from the Past, which is just all his singles, which were all fantastic. Don't Come Easy, Photograph, Back Off Boogaloo, all those fantastic songs. I would have included that in this list, but I didn't want to do compilations. That's kind of cheating for me. I wanted to really do albums. So solo albums, and that's why Ringo's missing. And while I do love the Ringo album, produced by Richard Perry, and with guest appearances by all the Beatles on it, I do love that album. I think it's a really cool album. It just, to me, it doesn't stack up in my top 10 of solo Beatles Beatle records. Anyway, that's my list. I would love to know what some of you think. I'm sure some of you are just completely disagreeing at this point. Like, what in the world happened? Let me know if there's something I didn't mention and you are wondering what's my opinion about some of those albums. You'll also notice I didn't, for some reason, I only chose one album that was outside of the 1970s, and that was George Harrison's Brainwashed album. So I did skip over a lot of great work by Paul, like Flaming Pie, Flowers in the Dirt, like I said, Tug of War, Chaos and Creation in the Backyard, his new album, which I love all of that work. But, like I said, that's my list, and I look forward to reading your comments down below. So, that's it for now. Ram on.